We are here with Zani van Staden today. It is so great to see you after all this time.
Awesome, Vic. It's so nice to see you again.
You are a new mom. I'm so excited to hear about your story and what you've done the past few years, because I actually haven't caught up with you in a long time. So I just want to hear, you're in the coaching industry and you have such an extensive background in human resources, in corporate companies and independently. Some exposure that I actually don't have. I've worked quite independently most of my journey, but I really want to hear about like what you're doing right now in coaching. How are you balancing this new mom life? I think you have a 2-month-old, and I just love to hear like what does life look like for Zani right now?
Well, yeah, it's been quite a journey. So like you said, I've worked in human resources and really saw while I was doing that there's a need for more coaching. Specifically internally, I started doing leadership coaching and really noticed that that's what I wanted to do and focus on. Didn't want to do just HR. So I started this journey of coaching, looking more into it, also finding myself. And I noticed that a lot of people were kind of on this journey of when I've been in my career for some time, what then, right? Like you've studied maybe something specifically, worked in a company or different industry for a long time, and then you kind of find yourself at this T-junction, which I also did. And I was able to figure that out through a lot of trial and error and research and trying things and failing. And I noticed that coaching was really what I wanted to do. And I thought that there must be other people who also feel like this, and discovered that there are. So I really started to focus on career coaching, supporting people to figure out this thing of what do I do with my career? It's not necessarily linear like it was a few decades ago where you have one career for the rest of your life. It's much more dynamic. It changes all the time. There's jobs now that didn't even exist a few years ago. So I think it's extremely exciting, but also quite scary to figure out a career. And as you're also saying, like figuring that out with maybe being a mother, because a lot of women are working now and we can work, you're allowed to work and drive and vote and all those things. But it is challenging. I don't think people talk about those challenges a lot. So that's where I'm at. I do coaching full time now, focusing, like I said, specifically on career coaching, but also life coaching. It's been a really interesting journey.
So did you like think, was that in mind like many years ago when you were going into your career, like how planning when you were going to have a child and like what you wanted to be doing, what kind of career you wanted at that time? Obviously, I mean, you don't want to be too stressed when you have children, I'm guessing. That's I think, So what was like your mind as you were planning your career trajectory?
It was definitely part of the thinking. So how do I create more flexibility for myself with being a mother? Being present is extremely important to me with my kids, or I have one child now, but and to do that was hard a few years ago before COVID, when everyone was going into the office full time. And I just knew that this was not going to be possible necessarily if I want to be there and I want to have a full-time job. That's just my choice, right? People figure it out all over. But for me, that was quite important, and wanted to work for myself. So started my own consulting company for coaching, which allowed me to have more flexibility. And then COVID hit, and then everyone started working remotely and flexibly. So I think a lot has changed for sure. And there is a lot more flexibility now. And I think even with legislation in South Africa, like those things are changing in terms of maternity leave and flexible working hours. It was definitely part of my consideration, but things also change all the time. And I think that's what I talk a lot about to people in my coaching. You can't necessarily have a plan now for the next 5 or 10 years. You know, that interview question, what's your 5-year or 10-year plan? It changes a lot. So even where I am now looks very different from where I thought I would be a few years ago. And I think that's important, being able to kind of grapple with that little bit of uncertainty as well, and being able to make new decisions and better decisions with more information. And you have to constantly continue to make the best decision for you, what makes sense for you now. Yeah. It's not always be as predictable as you think.
I am so out of touch with the South African economy. Like I've always just had this just negative feeling like there's no place for me in the South African economy. Like everyone that I knew, especially in Stellenbosch where we come from, it's a very intellectual town. So I just remember having a lot of like intellectual conversations hanging out there. Even like between lectures, and like all the pubs and bars are literally in the town where, after university, after your lectures, you could go and hang out. But there were just so many conversations. I just remember like a lot of engineers, a lot of medical students, and like banking, and just very traditional industries. And I just thought at the time that I think I last saw you. I didn't know when I last saw you, but probably around that time, that I just left the country. But I really want to understand, because obviously for people that are more human resource focused and focused on the coaching industry, which I've now got into, like, what does that look like in South Africa? I mean, I'm working mostly online, and I'm in Italy, so I see a lot of the coaching is sort of plugged into other roles in companies and corporations. But in South Africa, you're in Joburg, which is, I think, the most active city. I think it contributes mostly to the GDP of South Africa. What does coaching look like there?
Yeah, so I think coaching on an individual basis is quite different from what it would look like, I would say, in a corporate setting. So, for example, in South Africa, I think a lot of people don't necessarily have the disposable income or ability to just have a coach, right? So the I guess B2C market is very challenging. So getting individual clients, for example, or encouraging people to get a coach, or like get a life coach or get a career coach, that's not necessarily, that market is not, I think, very big. But where it is happening is where corporate companies are now saying coaching is really important to our leaders, to our teams, and companies are now starting to offer that as a benefit to their employees. So that's what I'm also currently doing. And that way, a lot more people has access to coaching. It gets more like acceptable to have a coach. It's not just like, oh, you have a life coach, it's airy-fairy. So I think it's amazing that is starting to happen, where it almost gets, I wouldn't say democratized, because a lot of people still don't have access. But for example, some of the companies that I work with, they work with relatively like low income employees as well, where someone can have a coach who would have never been able to afford that out of their own pocket. So I think that's amazing.
And what are the main pain points with your coachees, let's say? So what are their problem areas?
Sure, it really depends. But I think for each person, it might be different. But if we speak in general, it's about things that hold you back. People feel stuck, right? And then they either don't know where to start, or they kind of know where to start, but they don't believe that they can actually do this thing that they want to do. It feels like this elusive thing that they don't have access to. So it might be, I'm not good at public speaking, which you're also great at and coaching in. And they would just believe that I am not that person. I've never been this person. So they almost want to just deal with the pain of that and not necessarily become better at it. And that's what we work with a lot. Like, how do you break through those limiting beliefs? Or they say, I don't think I can be a good leader, or I'm not good at handling conflict. And they kind of want to avoid those things and think I'm just going to give them the magic bullet answers. And then we go through, what does that look like? Do you believe that you can become good at it? It might not feel natural to you, but it doesn't mean that you can't develop that ability and actually become really good at it. So it's not about believing those things, but I am this kind of person, or I'm not good at maths, or I'm not a leader, or I don't like running. Like, you can break through all of those things. So the issues vary a lot, but we work with those limiting beliefs. How do you break through it, and how do you then work on it consistently?
Do you think South Africa in particular has a problem with this like low self-esteem? Like, do you think because our country has been kind of broken in the past, and we have so many challenges, and it's common that like that one person is supporting the rest of their family and working in the economy? Because I think we have a very big problem with unemployment. So then, and just with so many historical, cultural, there's the crimes against women. Does that impact like the self-esteem, and then actually believing that people can work their way up in their careers?
Absolutely. So I work with a lot of women. I would say definitely more women than men. And I think they are almost more likely to reach out about coaching because they can open themselves up to that, almost like vulnerability to say, I need help. But what I am seeing so much, unfortunately, is that like imposter syndrome and saying, I'm in this space now. Like I'm maybe the first person of my first generation, like being able to access these spaces. And now I don't know exactly how to navigate that. I don't feel comfortable. Like people make me feel differently. Can I actually even step into that? Can I become a leader in this organization that I am just like really happy to be able to work for in the first place? So there's definitely a lot of that. Like confidence is a major, major, major issue. And I would say like in so many areas. So confidence in terms of like speaking out or taking up the space or even just giving a presentation. I would say that's one of the big themes that I work with. Yeah.
And how important is that? Like, I think our country's in need of leaders, whereas like some of the European countries, they're doing pretty well. And there's a tendency, for example, I remember in the Netherlands, like where I was, for people to not want to like push too far out to be too big of a star or something. But in our country, so they almost like, no, it's not a good thing that like, don't promote that you won. Like I want to start up award. And it's like, don't promote that you know, everyone's a winner. And I'm like, no, I'm the winner. Otherwise I wouldn't have done this, But it's also because in our country, we need winners and we need heroes. We need leaders. And it takes so much work to get the self-esteem to a point where you say, I'm this, and I think maybe education plays a big role. But how does like the coaching fit in with other skills, like come alongside other skills? So obviously they need certain skills to work their way up in their career. But where does coaching fit in the bigger scheme of education?
Sure. I think it's you talk about like the confidence and almost like not acknowledging that, like, or celebrating yourself. And I think that comes from the not wanting to be arrogant, right? Like not wanting to boast. And I think that's what sometimes hold people back from becoming confident, is they think they're going to be arrogant or going to be boastful. And then they would rather just not say something or not like take the acknowledgement. But that's an important part of confidence. It doesn't mean you're going to become like arrogant, like bully person if you just become a healthy level of confidence. I think that's the first thing, like, yes, building on that confidence. And coaching really helps through that process, like discovering that, like, what does confidence mean to you? What do you believe about yourself? What are those stories you tell yourself? So it's really a process of discovery, of asking the hard questions, of sometimes the obvious questions that we don't really want to sit with when we're just by ourselves. So my job as a coach is really to be extremely curious and to ask all of those questions and help those things like come to the front, because we have beliefs about, for example, confidence, or whatever it is, and we have to question those beliefs and systems that keep us in a specific space. Yeah,
I remember from experience. So I'd studied in the social science, and I'm so confident in my ability to like write and speak and whatever. But then when it came to mathematics, that is something that I've always wanted to master, is like get better at maths. Like it was one of my strengths in high school, but I just never had like the focus to just do it. And there were so many distractions and whatever. And then I was like, I really just want to do this. And I went back and studied economics, and so many of the subjects required mathematics. And I'm just like so bad. I'm like, what? Like the last time I did this was 12 years ago. But there was like a mental block where I was just like, you can't do it. You're just not good at it. Like you're going to fail anyways. And if I just done the steps, like step by step and lecture by lecture, you can do it, because there were other people that had also not done maths in years, but they just sort of did it. But there was just like this mental block that like, I can't do it. And also I think, I'm not sure if you have the same sense, but my sense was in my upbringing, like it wasn't really like the woman should take on a job in finance or like talk about financial things. So even if like the table, it's not like that, that the woman would be included in that discussion. So you're always kind of left out. But like, I actually was really interested in that if I'd been allowed in the conversation. So if there's this barrier, then you want to enter in the discussion, but you're clearly not welcome. Like, how do you find the source within yourself to say, you know what, I'm just going to do it, or I want to go learn that subject, or I want to get at this skill? At what point do you like say, I'm naturally inclined, like it's my natural gifting, or my brain thinks in this way. I want to learn the skill set. I think mathematically or whatever, but I'm just like, I'm not jumping that, taking that step. So how to overcome that? How do you find it within yourself? Like, I really had to just keep pushing and be like, I really want to learn this. And it also gets harder the older you get, because you have skills and you're locked into your industry. So how do you that jump?
Yeah. So I mean, there's growth mindset, of course, it's like a buzzword, but it actually does unlock something different. If you can make that switch between having that fixed beliefs about yourself and I'm not good at maths yet, right? Like maybe you've seen the TED Talk and all the things. That's belief. And if you can tell yourself not yet, then that's giving you, there's some steps I can take and there's a path that I can follow. There's momentum because I'm going to get better every single time that I practice at this. But I think sometimes we don't admit that to ourselves, that we can actually be great at maths, because it's going to be hard work. Because yes, some people are a little bit more naturally inclined at certain things. So it's going to be just harder for other people, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And sometimes we don't want to put in that hard work and we'll just go like, I'm not good at maths, instead of saying, I'm not willing to put in the work to become good at maths. And that's it. Maybe it sounds a little bit harsh and it's not that simplified. And I know about all the nuances and don't want to be insensitive, but it was for me as well, right? It was a similar thing. Like I was the art person, I was did all the other cultural activities. I didn't necessarily flourish at maths, or I was okay at it, but it was because of those beliefs, right? Like when there were questions, the teacher would focus on the guys in the room. And I think often, unfortunately, in the educational systems as well, some teachers have this policy where they focus on the top 5%, and then like, we should only focus on these kids because they have a natural ability. We should make sure that they are the best that they can be, and the other kids kind of get left behind. And I think that system reinforces those beliefs of, oh, you're not the chosen one, you're not good at this, rather find something else, instead of saying you can also be good at this. So it is partly, I think, as I think educational systems are to blame, but also because that's the stories we constantly hear, whether it's conscious or subconscious. But we have to unlock that for ourselves to say, I can do this. It's going to be like really hard work. Am I willing to do it and go for it?
And I also think like the power of words, especially of teachers in your upbringing, that maybe say, you're not good at this, or you're a terrible writer, or whatever. And my brain's like quite logical. So if somebody like tells me something, I'll always question them and see, is that true or is it not? But sometimes words, you really can't just break through. They do have power. And when someone speaks something over your life, that can lock you into believing that. And how do you say, no, I'm not? And I deal with that also with my coaching clients a lot. It's like, I can see they had, I have to try and get to that trauma point of like, which teacher said what to you? You realize like that responsibility of like the teachers, but then how do you say like, I draw the line here, I am not that. How do you need to find yourself, and how do you even become conscious of that? That's the thing that's blocking you.
Yeah. That's so hard. And I remember many, many years ago, someone said something that stuck with me forever. And they said, you can only blame your parents up to a point, right? Then you become an adult and then you have to make your own decisions. So you can't say, oh, my parents always did this, so this is what I saw in the household. Yes, that might be true. But at some point, yes, that almost moment of enlightenment needs to happen. And you need to go, I want to make different decisions now. I want to not believe those stories anymore. It's hard to say what unlocks that, right? because maybe some people never get to that moment of saying, I can be something else or I can learn something else. I think it is a lot of like exposure to different things. So you might talk to someone, you might have a great mentor or teacher or meet someone randomly, or you might see a video online, something externally that sparks it. But I think there is this internal curiosity as well. You can start to wonder, why is this true for me? Is this actually true? Like asking those questions. So that's something that I'm grappling with. Like, where do we find that inflection point? How do we unlock that for everyone in the world, almost, to say you can like unlock things for yourself? Doesn't have to be predestined, depending on your upbringing or teaching. And again, I'm not saying, again, in the context of South Africa, I'm almost careful to say that, because it's not that simple, right? Like someone who grew up in a very, very different context to what maybe I did, it's not as simple as saying just decide you're going to do something else and then do it, right? There are a lot of factors. There are economic factors. All those things do play a role. But I think if we can give people that, not give people, if people can discover that for themselves, like that would be amazing.
So I was just thinking that is discovering for yourself, and because we also have the history of oppression where one group of people is telling other people what to do, how to do it. It's that thing of empowerment is really necessary, I think, in our country, although, like I said, a bit out of touch with South Africa. But that's what I remember the case being, that just like people, they need to discover it for themselves, write their own story and not wait for somebody to write their story or tell them what to do, or do you know what I mean? Because we were an oppressed nation. So like, how do you see that actually happening within a person's life where they start saying, because I see so many success stories in South Africa where you have entrepreneurs that started their own thing, or, got educated, got a scholarship somewhere and then got educated and worked their way up, and just wonderful stories. But like, when you see that unfold with your coaching, how long does this process take where somebody says, okay, I want to, they have to overcome whatever. It could be internal, it could be, working their way up the career ladder. How does that journey look for a coachee, let's say?
It really depends. And I know this,
not companies must believe in it to pay for this type of thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what a lot of people also ask me, like when they start, okay, great, how long is this going to take until my life changes? So fix me. What is the time frame? When can I get a return on investment? So, but the answer is it does depend. And again, that's going to be dependent on the person, how much they're willing to put the work in. I see changes within like weeks, like sometimes even within days. And next week, the person would tell me, I had this conversation, this opened up the door. Whereas other times there's so much work to be done, and just like making a small shift of starting to have a different belief can take like a lot longer. So I think it really depends. And that's why with coaching, it's not me giving you the answers. You have to be willing to put the work in. And I think if you come with that mindset, that this is going to be really hard, I have to shift all of these things. They can be like relatively quick shifts. So we coach around 3 to 4 months usually. Like that's the time period, if you have to put a time frame on it, where there's usually some sort of shift. I think maybe the difference is the size of the shift depends on the person. Yeah.
So is it paired with another type of skill set? Like public speaking coaching can be paired with like sales, or with keynote speeches, or whatever, a speaker tour or something. Is there some sort of other objective tied to it? Like, what is the objective for the company? Why do they fund this type of coaching?
So I think companies have realized that they really need to pay more attention to their teams, to the people that they work for, because there's so much almost like choice now. People move jobs a lot easier. They really have to invest in their people. And that's, I think, one of the big motivators, like to make people feel like they are more, they have more fulfilling jobs, they enjoy it more, they don't have this fear of going to work because they fear those meetings. So it's about functioning better, like be more healthy at work and kind of solve some of those roadblocks. But also in terms of leadership coaching, of course, you want your leaders to manage people better, to lead better. That's better for the whole company. So we work a lot around like, what are the things that make your job maybe not so enjoyable at the moment? Why is that? How can we solve for that?
So a lot of it is about retaining them as employees, about like, and strengthening the company culture, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in leadership coaching. Like, how do you become a better leader? What are your teams saying about you at the moment? What are the biggest pain points? How do we solve that? Do you see that might be problematic if that continues to happen? So for sure, I think it's about healthier workspaces in that context.
So what is the transformation that you see, like when they come to you in the beginning of the 3-4 months and afterwards? Like I know with mine, you see the difference, and I can still see the difference months after that, but then it kind of wears off, and then you kind of have to be like, how's it going? Check up on them. So how does it look like the before and after?
Yeah. So it depends on the person's like specific goal. So again, it depends on person to person. So when we start the coaching engagement, you have to have a specific goal. So the goal is dependent on the person, and our mission in the coaching process at the end of those 4 months is to have achieved that goal. So it might be I have more confidence in the work setting. It might be I have to manage my time better because I'm not coping, I'm burnt out, or I say yes all the time, that's why I'm burnt out. It really depends on the person's goal. But yes, there is definitely a noticeable difference. But so many people tell me that I don't want this coaching to end because what am I going to do now? Because we check in then every week or every 2 weeks to say, how is it going? What did you do? Did you make those changes? Did you practice? It's that accountability that you have in a coach that is hard to do when you're by yourself. So we're notoriously bad, I think, at holding ourselves accountable to make those difficult changes. If you have to go for a run on your own, if you have to go for a run and you're meeting a friend there, it's going to be different. So I think that's the challenge then. You have pretty good momentum initially, and some people then do have those changes long lasting and sustainable, and they've really worked it into their systems and way of being. But I think it's still challenging for all of us to maintain that once that check-in is not maybe there anymore.
Yeah. And coming from the human resource background, how do you see coaching fit into the broader scope of human resources?
So I think it really needs to be part of like every like people's strategy to say like, how are we taking care of people? Are they addressing the things that they would like to? Are they even aware of the things that need to be maybe worked on? And that can't always be done in a employee manager relationship, because very often that the challenges lie within that relationship, while the manager can't coach you on how to deal with difficult leadership. So I think coaching should be part of a strategy. It could be internally, but I think those relationships sometimes are a little bit complicated. So having an external objective party really can help. But I think it's important for managers or leaders to really also have a coaching disposition in the way that they engage with their teams. So asking a lot of questions, supporting teams to discover things, like encouraging them to make mistakes sometimes, and not, again, be in that this is right, this is wrong, you're not good at this, that's terrible. So having a coaching, like I said, disposition in leadership is really powerful.
Some people kind of discredit the coaching industry as just being like anyone can be a coach. And it's kind of true. It's a very like unregulated industry. I mean, in my coaching, it's very, there's really no regulations. but most people tend to come from like either a musical or theatrical background mixed with linguistics. So it's pretty common for like me to be doing public speaking coaching, but in leadership coaching and other types of coaching, it's like such an open market. So like, how would you define coaching? That's a criminal question because like I can't even think of the answer, but how would you define coaching?
I think it's really a thinking partnership where you support someone in discovering things about themselves and becoming a better version of themselves. So to your point where coaching is not very regulated and every second person can now be a life coach, I think there's a lot of almost like negative stigma around it. Oh, you're a life coach. Oh, you just go on yoga retreats and just like, it's very la-di-da. What was I going to say?
Yeah, but it's basically a thinking partnership.
Yeah, and I think the coach is not supposed to be the expert of life if they're a life coach, right? It doesn't mean they have all the answers. In fact, they don't have all the answers. They're going to help you find the answers. And that's what coaches are really skilled at and should be skilled at supporting someone else to find the answers. And I think that's where the tension sometimes lie, again, when someone comes to you and they're like, oh, you're the coach now, tell me all the answers. And it feels vulnerable for the coach then to say, I don't know all the answers.
You have answers. You have the answers in fact. I'm going to help you unlock those answers.
Exactly. And I think that's where the mis kind of almost understanding comes, like coaches do not know everything. And almost to encourage people to then also say, it's also okay if you say you don't know everything. I think we have our egos and we all want to be right. We all want to be an expert at something. But the moment you go, I don't know everything, I'm going to be bad at this thing that I'm starting to learn now how to be good at. That's, I think, where the magic happens. Now, there has to be trust in that relationship to have that vulnerability to say, okay, this is my honest like experience, what I'm having. And then only can you unlock where do we go from here?
So Zani, your approach is very much about like unlocking your own natural gifts. And I've been thinking about that a lot because that's even why I started this podcast. I was like, what are my natural gifts? Like I know what I can do so many things, but I know like my top three, I think I ask good questions usually. And so I like questioning and interviews and writing and speaking. And those are like my top three. And other skills that I have, like music production and singing, that I had to work very hard at acquiring. I would say those are my top skills, but I love it and it's a passion and it's always there. And I can always like go back to it if it's an outlet that I want to use. But I've just like been embracing like what are really my skill sets and then taking it from there. Obviously, I have like some other goals that I have for my career and other interests in other industries that I'm thinking of. Alongside everything that I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, how did you come to that thought of like, because usually in my program, I do like this whole value unlocking thing where I get them to write what their strengths and weaknesses are and whatever. And then I did some of my own exercises myself and I'm like, you know what? I should follow my own advice. But how did you get to the point where you realize, wait, this is the real issue? Like people need to be stepping into their natural gifts.
Mm-hmm. That's hard work, right? Because yes, you can do a personality test, you can do these things, it helps, but it's hard work to actually go, what do I enjoy, what do I not enjoy, where are the gaps, where do they overlap? And yes, it's important to step into those natural gifts, but there will always be gaps. So yes, we want to like amplify the things that are already there, but at the same time, we need to go, okay, what's holding you back from using those natural gifts? And those things are the things that we say, I'm not good at. And then we need to like figure those things out as well so that you can use those natural gifts. So for example, one of my absolute passions is like supporting people to like discover their potential and to live that fully. But I didn't like speaking in front of people or even having a conversation like this a few years ago. I would have like never done that. So I needed to like build my confidence in that to enable me to use these gifts. So it's a process of like confronting yourself and going, what's going on? I did lots of diagrams, lots of exercises, lots of like drawing and writing and trying to figure this out. And then when you do figure it out, I think it's incredible, but it's going to come with some T's and C's to say, okay, these are the things that you need to amplify to get to this point.
But I definitely think you're doing the right thing, because I remember in university you would always like encourage, and you're also very busy. Like you always had sports going, and you're strong, like you're healthy, and you would always encourage and check up and have a smile on your face. So I also think like coaching isn't an industry that's like you can be like, I'm going to study to be I do think it has to kind of come naturally. Like you kind of have to be an empath, and don't you think? Like it's got to come naturally, like you're a giver.
No, for sure. I think you have, for coaching specifically, I think it's just so important to have that synergy and that connection with someone. And I mean, even in therapy and counseling, they see better outcomes with people who have a better connection with their therapist, even though they had exactly the same approach as someone else. Being able to connect with people, I think, is really important. And honestly, like wanting for them to like be a better version of themselves.
Listen, Zani, I would love to hear how it's been to be a new mama. This is the Mama Africa Educast, and I am exploring this, how do you work and be a mom, and how has that changed your life? What have the challenges been? What have the joys been? I know it's only been 2 months, and how do you like see the year planning out? Just how does it affect your energy? Just everything about it.
It's a lot, I must say. And I think being a new mom, I think that is like so different, I think, too, when it's the second time or third time around, because everything is new. Like from the first waking up in the middle of the night to like going outside of your house for the first time with your baby, it feels so like weird initially. And I think you really become a different person. Like this old version of yourself is no longer there. You're a completely different person, and it's incredible, but it's also so hard. And and I don't think we talk about the hard things a lot, and I don't want to focus too much on that, but it has been incredible. It's only been 2 months, so I'm still on maternity leave. Thankfully, my employer it's amazing. But it is a big change. Like your life will never be the same again. So waking up in the middle of the night, like every like few hours, there's this and there's that, and there's a lot of things to deal with. And there's this dynamic, like figuring out with your partner. Like I absolutely like love being a mom. It's been quite a journey, and I don't think people talk about that a lot. Of fertility and like getting to this point even has been a journey. But it's been incredible. So I think you have to be so adaptable. You can't think that now this is just going to fit into this box of my life. I'm going to be sending emails maybe 2:00 in the morning because that's when I'm going to be awake. Or you do this early in the morning because your partner's at home now and later on they're leaving. So then you have to jump in. I think it's a really nice challenge of how do you constantly adapt? How do you not be so fixed to the expectations of what you thought it would be? I had this whole plan of when I'm going to be on maternity leave, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to organize all my photos. Finally, I'm going to do I have all this time. And you just don't. It looks very differently. So kind of embracing that is important. Like it's messy, it's beautiful. It's all these things at the same time. So I would say overall, I'm really, really enjoying it. It's allowing you to see a different side of yourself that you didn't know kind of exists.
Amazing. And I actually don't know, what are the laws in South Africa with like maternity leave, and how do they support pregnant women and women who've just given birth?
Yeah. So in South Africa, there's 4 months maternity leave that you have to get, but it's not paid necessarily. So legally, you don't have to pay someone that goes on maternity leave, but some employers do that. So it really depends. And I know a lot of other European countries, there's like many months of maternity leave and it's all paid and it's amazing. So South Africa still, I think, has a long way to go in terms of support, but there are employers that are really amazing and do have a lot more flexibility. So I think that is starting to change. I mean, our paternity leave also changed. So so the partner can also get days off now. There's some legislation that's going to change that we can alternate, like who takes off between the mom and the dad or the partner or whoever, that it's not just all on the mother as well. So I think that's quite interesting, where legislation and support is also adapting to how the world is changing. So yeah, it's been a journey. Like, I think there is some support, but there's still some way to go.
How do you envision like getting back into, I mean, you still are working now, but like what is the process over the next couple of months, like until you fully back into work, and then, you know, how you manage your child, like how's it all going to play out? I know this sounds so bizarre, but like I've only had a little dog before, you know, and a little sausage dog, and I miss her a lot, but she, you know, it changes your life. I know this is not so not the same thing, but can you explain, like, how do you envision your work life changing over the next couple of months, and like as you transition back into manage everything?
I mean, I honestly, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Like when you get there, you also see what it looks like and make different decisions, maybe of in terms of support, or family can help out, or do you get someone that supports you when you do go back to work? I'm lucky that I work from home some days of the week. Some days I go into the office, so there is some flexibility. But I mean, you can't have a coaching session and also have a baby next to you. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. If I do go back to work, I'm definitely going to have to get some support, whether that is family or whether that's someone that comes to help out. Yeah, we'll see is the answer.
I don't know how my mother did. She had like 4 children and worked, and it's like crazy. But I think she actually overworked because she was trying to like get away from us sometimes. And she was like, I had 4 children so they could all figure themselves out. And, you know, she had 4 children in 5 years, and that was her strategy. It was like, we can all look after each other.
It also depends, like, I think the load shouldn't all just be on a mother. Like, it is a massive responsibility, and there is that. But I think I'm very lucky to have an extremely supportive partner as well. So he helps out, and he not helps us, he also parents. And he's going to look at what does his work look like, and he get some flexibility as well. So I think that's important, to not just go, okay, it's always just the mom has to like figure it all out on her own. I think that's important. Depending, of course, on your personal situation and what your preferences are in terms of those roles. But yeah, I think that's also changing.
Okay, so Zani, one thing that we do here is we highlight an opportunity usually in Africa, but let's just talk about South Africa. And I just want to know, what is the thing that you love most about living in South Africa?
There's a lot. I love the people. I love our way of being. I love the humor. I love the like offbeat kind of way of being sometimes. I love the incredible like landscapes. We have everything in South Africa. We have mountains. We have the sea. We have some like arid like desert in the Kalahari. There's incredible places. And I think really it feels like home. Like it is the people that you grew up with, the kind of, there's something that you can't really describe when you are in another country. Like I've lived abroad in Indonesia for 3 years, for example, and it's amazing as well. But there's just that something when you land back in South Africa that you can't quite put your finger on. So maybe that is what I love the most, the thing that I can't describe.
Zani, what languages will you teach your baba?
So our home language is Afrikaans, so that will be our primary language that we speak. I think it's important to learn your mother language, of course, English. And then I think depending where we end up in South Africa, definitely perhaps isiZulu is, I think, the most common language that everyone can kind of speak. Yeah, there's so many languages, as you would know. There's 12 official languages now in South Africa, but I think the most common one would be isiZulu, which I think would be really amazing for our daughter if she ends up staying in South Africa.
That's great. I always wanted to learn Xhosa like fluently. I did a few of the class, but the thinking is so different. It's such a different language class. So the younger, the better. But thank you so much, Zani, for sharing with us. It is so cool to hear. And I think it's kind of rare to speak to a mother of a newborn and just your experience. So it's almost like a little documentary of like, just like a frozen moment in time of like, okay, that's what it was like in 2025. For a South African woman, managing the career and a baby and everything. Maybe one last thing, if people have a low self-esteem, like what can they start doing today to start seeing like a more confident self?
Yeah. I think it's really about like asking yourself, what are those things that I am good at? What are those things that I like about myself? Because in low self-confidence, you often focus on the things that you're not good at, right? And that becomes really the focus. So if you start focusing on the things that you can really amplify, saying, okay, I enjoy talking to people. I think I'm good at talking to people. I think I'm a kind person. I think I have some interesting ideas. I think I have a good sense of humor. Like starting to build yourself up through those things, I think can really be helpful. And then, like we said earlier, amplifying that instead of just going, oh, I'm maybe not great at public speaking or maths. Like rather focus on what you are already in yourself. Yeah.
I tell that to a few people in my life all the time. Like, stop talking negative about yourself.
Yeah.
Speak positive.
Absolutely. I have it at one point as well. Like I said, I was working on confidence as well. And one of the ways to build confidence is also to do things that are hard for you, right? So for me at one point, like making a call to order a pizza, didn't want to do it at all. And you have to challenge yourself in those small moments. So I think that is something you can also do. And then when you do it, like give yourself a little kudos. I had this jar on my table and I would make a little sticky note, fold it up, say, I ordered a pizza today, put it in the jar. Or I spoke to a new person today, put it in the jar. And then you're like building up this inventory of like little steps of I'm building my confidence. And I really believe through that process, like I was able to go, yeah, Rebecca, sure, like let's do this podcast. It took those steps of building yourself a little jar, I think, is something that someone
cast in a jar. I also use the jar. I made a jar the other day for like another thing, but it's such a cool thing. So what's that exercise called?
It's not a specific name. I just made it up.
Always in a jar. So what are we going to call it?
So like build a confidence jar. So have a physical something on your desk, or whether it's sticky notes you put on your like pin board, have something physical. Don't just go in your head. I think visualizing it really, really helps. It sounds silly, but it does help. So yeah, make that confidence.
So write down something you're good at, put it in the jar. And the second thing is like write down things you're going to do that are positive.
Write down things that you did to build up yourself, to build something that was new, that was scary, to build your confidence. So like I walked into a meeting today and I actually said something. Write that down.
And then what do you do when you have all the letters in the jar? What do you do?
So on those days that you feel like, oh my goodness, that went terrible, or didn't have a good day, then it's a great opportunity to actually read through them and go, no, I've taken all these steps. I'm not where I am or where I was a few months ago, a few weeks ago. I've done all these things. I'm actually on a different like level now on the scale of confidence because I've done all these things.
Sometimes we don't realize how far we've come. Thank you for sharing such positive thoughts and some insights, some exercise that we can do. I'm sure people will take a lot of value from that. So thank you for being here on the Mama Africa Show.
Thanks so much for having me, Becky. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day.